In the shadows of 1888, London, a spectre lurks, a dark presence that would forever be known as Jack the Ripper. This name would become a chilling whisper on the wind, echoing through the narrow, grimy alleyways of Whitechapel in London's East End. Whitechapel during the late 19th century was a labyrinth of poverty and hardship, a place where the struggle for survival was a daily reality. The cobbled streets were teeming with the desperate and the destitute. Among them were the women of Whitechapel, often forced into unsavory professions to eke out a meager existence. Their lives were marked by hardship, their futures uncertain, their safety, as we would soon discover, perilously fragile. This was a time of stark contrasts. The grandeur and opulence of Victorian London stood in sharp relief against the squalor of the East End. But beneath the veneer of prosperity and progress, the city was grappling with serious social issues. Overpopulation, unemployment, and homelessness were rampant. Alcoholism was a common escape from the harsh realities of life. The police force, under-resourced and overwhelmed, struggled to maintain order. The women of Whitechapel, bearing the brunt of these social ills, were easy prey for a predator lurking in the shadows. They were the forgotten ones, the ones society had turned a blind eye towards. And it was amongst them that Jack the Ripper would find his victims. In this backdrop of despair and desperation, the stage was set for one of the most infamous serial killers in history. To make his deadly debut, the spectre was ready to emerge from the shadows. The streets of Whitechapel, that had been a silent witness to so much suffering, were about to become the canvas for a series of gruesome, unsolved murders that would shock the world. And then, in the early hours of August 31st, the spectre claimed its first victim. A name forever etched in the annals of crime history, Mary Ann Nichols would be the first to fall prey to the dark presence that had begun to haunt the streets of Whitechapel. Mary Ann Nichols, a woman struggling with poverty and addiction, became the first known victim of the Ripper's deadly grasp. In the early morning hours of August 31st, 1888, her life was brutally extinguished on the grimy streets of Whitechapel. Nichols' body was discovered with injuries so horrific they sent shockwaves through the community. Her throat had been deeply slashed twice, and her abdomen grotesquely mutilated. The sheer savagery of the attack was unlike anything the local law enforcement had ever seen, setting a chilling precedent for the atrocities yet to unfold. The distinct modus operandi was a dark signature, a harbinger of the shadow that had fallen on London. The city, its streets echoing with fear and whispers of a killer on the loose, was ill-prepared for the nightmare that was to come. Little did London know the reign of terror had just begun. In the following weeks, the Ripper's shadow fell over Whitechapel again and again. In the chilling dawn of September 8th, 1888, Annie Chapman's life was brutally cut short. Her injuries, much like those of Mary Ann Nichols, bore the signature of the fiend, who was now beginning to instill dread into the hearts of Londoners. 2 weeks passed under the cloud of fear, and then, on the last night of September, the Ripper claimed 2 lives in one night. Elizabeth Stride, found in Dutfield's yard, met a similar fate to the previous victims. However, her injuries were less severe, leading some to speculate that the Ripper had been interrupted. Yet, the Ripper's thirst for blood was not quenched. That same night, Catherine Edowes was found in Mitre Square, her body mutilated in the now all too familiar fashion. The audacity of 2 murders in a single night sent waves of panic through the city. The final victim, Mary Jane Kelly, met her end on November 9th. Her murder was the most gruesome of all, with the Ripper taking the time to inflict injuries far beyond those necessary to end her life. The brutality of her murder shook London to its core. marking a terrifying escalation in the Ripper's rampage. Each of these murders bore striking similarities. The victims were all women of the night, their throats slashed, bodies horrifically mutilated. These were not random acts of violence, but the deeds of a methodical killer, leaving behind a chilling signature at each crime scene. The city was in the grip of terror. Streets that once bustled with life now lay deserted as night fell. The police were at a loss, their efforts to capture the murderer proving futile. The press fanned the flames of fear, the name Jack the Ripper becoming synonymous with the face of evil. As the body count rose, so, too, did the list of suspects. From butchers to doctors, the list of those suspected to be Jack the Ripper was as varied as it was long. Our first suspect, Montague John Druitt, was a barrister and a schoolteacher with a love for cricket. His connection to the case? His own family suspected him. His own mother was mentally ill, and Druitt himself was said to be suffering from serious depression. His body was found in the Thames, a month after the last murder. The timing, his mental state, and his own family's suspicions led many to believe that Druitt might be the notorious killer. Then there was Seweryn Kłosowski, also known as George Chapman. A Polish immigrant, Chapman was a barber with a murderous streak. He was later found guilty of poisoning 3 of his wives, a crime for which he was hanged in 1903. The method of his confirmed killings was vastly different from the Ripper's, yet his violent tendencies and his location at the time of the murders made him a prime suspect. Lastly, we have Aaron Kosminski. Another Polish immigrant, Kosminski was a hairdresser in Whitechapel at the time of the murders. He had a history of mental illness and violent behavior. Kosminski was a suspect during the original investigation, and recent DNA evidence from a shawl found at one of the crime scenes may link him to the killings. However, the validity of this evidence is widely debated among experts. These are but 3 names on a long list of possible culprits. Some were suspected due to their medical knowledge, others for their proximity to the crime scenes, and a few because of their mental instability. Each suspect brings a new layer to this intricate mystery, a puzzle that has intrigued us for over a century. Despite the long list of suspects, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains a mystery to this day. Over a century later, the spectre of Jack the Ripper continues to haunt us. Even today, the name Jack the Ripper is enough to send a chill down the spine, a testament to the enduring impact of this infamous serial killer on society. The Ripper murders created a media frenzy, unlike anything seen before in the late 19th century. Newspapers were filled with lurid details of the gruesome crimes, fueling public fear and fascination. This was one of the first instances where a criminal case was followed so closely by the public, setting a precedent for the media coverage of crime that we see today. The fascination with Jack the Ripper didn't end with the close of the 19th century. Books, films, and television shows continue to explore the mystery of his identity and his motives. His shadowy figure has been woven into the fabric of popular culture, shaping our perception of serial killers. The Ripper's legacy also extends to the field of criminology. His case was instrumental in highlighting the importance of forensic science in crime solving. The inability of the police to catch the Ripper using traditional methods of the time underscored the need for more scientific approaches to crime detection. The mystery surrounding Jack the Ripper has also affected the public's perception of serial killers. The fact that he was never caught has only fueled our collective curiosity and fear. we continue to grapple with the unsettling idea that a person capable of such heinous acts could walk among us unnoticed. In the end, Jack the Ripper remains an enigma, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the heart of a city. Even as we continue to seek answers, his legacy serves as a stark reminder of the depths of human depravity and the enduring power of unsolved mysteries.